Salam fam, happy Ramadan. Let's continue our debunking of this inaccurate book that paints Islam in a horrible way in America and it spreads disinformation, and it still has followers today, so it's still fooling people today, and we'll point out these simple aspects that prove that it's just complete and utter nonsense. It's on page 119. Look at this, what he does. This makes it very easy to understand to whom it is referring. What mankind? Surely we created a man from sperm mixed with ovum to try him, so we have made him hearing and seeing. Chapter 76:2. So you see how he introduced a yacht here to kind of make himself sound legitimate. It provides a very authoritative tone. Now watch what he does. Inasmuch as these chapters have a further reference to the spiritual creation of the last messenger. Now, pause for a second. He calls the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the last messenger, yet as we've seen in previous sections, he calls himself a messenger and said that Allah spoke to him in the flesh. So this guy, he's not even keeping track of his own lies, and he contradicts himself constantly. I mean, you can tell he didn't have an editor or any people around him to be like, hey man, how can you say that Prophet Muhammad was the last messenger, which he is, but then also call yourself a messenger? You see what I'm saying? Let's continue. It is equally true that they refer to the physical creation of the white race. Now, do you see what he did here? He took an ayat where Allah is describing how he created us, and then he goes to make it sound as if this is a special instance of just the creation of the white race. He truly is trying everything he can to use the Quran as a weapon, and it's quite disgusting. In another place, the Holy Quran says, we have created man and now he is an open disputer. So here he tries to use the Quran to say his own race is trash against white people. Again, this is why I think it's important for people to read the tafsir, and I can see why accurate Islamic education is much needed, because sophists like this use the Quran in order to cause dissension and strife. I mean, the fact that he keeps adding things and he has no fear of Allah shows you that he's not a real Muslim. There's just no way. Just no way. I mean, he has no shame in his riddling and lies, and if he really was a Muslim, which he's not, clearly, he should have some fear. I mean, he has no fear with the lies he's creating. He continues, Yaqub's race of devils, again calling white people devils. So whenever you hear people say that this man wasn't a bona fide racist, he is. And the funniest part is in the beginning of his book, there's like a foreword where it says, Elijah doesn't tell his followers to hate white people. If you're calling someone a race of devils, I mean, come on now. We've seen clearly throughout this book, this man, he wants genocide. And he's quite a lunatic. So let's continue. We're exiled in the hills and caves of West Asia, now called Europe. So he contends that white people were sent away. That they were just like, hey, you gotta get out of here. I mean, he's just making up his own history, really. They were without anything to start civilization and became savages. See what he did here is that, remember how in America, there's now a movement where Western civilization is being criticized? If you look at Italy, the architecture, you look at just, history in general, every country has their glory. The Aztecs, the Mongols, everyone has their turn, right? See how he is hurt because of what happened to African Americans during the slavery times of the 14th, 16th, 17th, and 18th kind of century, right? Which is completely understandable. And the way in which slave masters treated the slaves, they treated them as savages and viewed them sometimes as savages, right? As property, as some people who were incapable of worthy of education, which is horrible and should have never been thought of. But what he does here is he flips it to where he makes his reader more enthusiastic about hatred. So what he does here with the psychology, with just within this one sentence, is they think you're savages, but guess what? They were the real savages. So then when he compliments his reader to get them more filled with hatred. Remember how in a previous reading he said that black people were despised throughout the earth? Remember how he did a psychological abuse? Now he's flipped it to where, no, they despise you, but they were really the savages. And to be honest, any race is capable of savagery. I mean, humans are weak in that point. We hurt each other, and it's quite sad. And how can he say start a civilization? I mean, even anthropologists would debate the terms and archaeologists of what is a civilization. Do you measure it solely on architecture or on customs and codes, relationships of kith and kin, rules of inheritance, agricultural setups? There's a lot of measurements here, but just within one sentence he embeds and implies so much. It's quite absurd. He continues, they remained in such condition for 2,000 years, no guide or literature. Now, the writing aspect here is what people used in the age of feudalism to say, like, well, some people, they can't read or write, so they don't have a guide, so they're therefore basic savages who have to be ruled. This is what certain governments even think, and certain mindsets and consciousness think, that if you cannot have any type of literature, that you will not be guided right. But as we see, humans still create an organization even if they can't read or write. They can still use their mouth, and they set up a system of their own communities in general. So he does a lot here to really demonize white people in a way that's a rhetoric trick, but also just made up history. The way in which he writes, he tries to come off as very authoritative. That's why he decides to use the Quran and the Bible and fake math in order to, make himself sound more legit. But any person who is well read can see he's just a giant charlatan, somebody who's truly trying to maximize profits and fame off of hatred. He has been scarred in his heart, and instead of finding common ground and moving on and promoting love, companionship, strength, and honor, he is maximizing hatred. So, again, when you read books like this, it just teaches you that you have to be very aware, because his way of doing it is easy, but some people are getting better and better, and that's why critical thinking is essential.